Hi, I'm Jenna. This is Books Love Jenna, as in those books, they just love her. And I am here to do June and July's good news. I did not post a good news video for June because June was such a wild month and I just kind of checked out of anything that wasn't vitally important to accomplish. And I did reading, as you know, but I did not take the time while reading to write down anything in my commonplace books. And so I went back just last night actually and added June to my commonplace books. And instead of doing a June and a July video, I'm just gonna do June and July together. So there's gonna be a lot of different books here that I quote from, but I'm cool with that. If you're cool with that, let's have some good news. If you're new to this series of videos this year, I have been posting a monthly until now video called Good News, in which I share just quotes from different things I read in that month prior. And that's it. There's nothing fancy here. In fact, my commonplace books are not fancy at all. I have some themes that I'm trying to focus on this year. And so I've got nature, beauty, faith, love, and for all the stuff that doesn't necessarily fit amongst those themes, I've got other. And other is, as you can probably guess, usually the fullest commonplace book each month. So I never start with other. I'm gonna start with saying this. This is one of my favorite books that I read in July and maybe my favorite book of the year, we'll see. It's not featured in any of my commonplace books, even though there's gonna be a billion quotes. I'm gonna do a reread of this right now, like at the beginning of August. This is the 31st of July and I'm gonna start rereading it today. I don't think I'll finish it today. I've got some other stuff to do, but I'll probably finish it tomorrow or Saturday, the 1st or the 2nd of August, and I will record quotes from it there. The reason I'm doing that is because I originally read this as the ARC that was sent to me on my Kindle, and yeah, it's a different reading experience for me. And while I did highlight things on my Kindle, I didn't highlight everything that I would like to say, and I'm not sure everything is exactly the same in the ARC version as it will be in the physical version. I love this so much that as soon as I finished it, I ordered a physical copy of it. So I'm gonna do a reread of this just weeks after having read it the first time, and I'm really excited, but it's gonna feature in August. The other thing I wanna say, which is different for this month, is that I read, in June, I read A Little Daylight Left by Sarah Kay. I'm so excited because I'm going to get to go see Sarah Kay on the last Friday of my summer break. That's one of the fun things that I'm definitely going to be doing in August. So she's going to be at a local bookstore. I'm going to get to go see her, hear her. It won't be the first time that I've seen her in person, but she is such a national treasure. So I didn't write the poems down that I loved from this collection, but I'm going to read some of them here because if I wasn't so lazy, I would write them down. I'm not going to record whole poems into my commonplace book, not at this time anyway. And I don't want to just read like one line or two lines. I want the whole poem to get to you. So I will, in between each commonplace book, that we dip in and out of, I will share a poem from here. So we'll start with a poem from here. And I'm gonna start with the first one. This is called A Bird Made of Birds. And again, this is from A Little Daylight by Sarah Kay. The universe has already written the poem you were planning on writing. Kaveh Akbar. The universe has already written the poem you were planning on writing, and this is why you can do nothing but point at the flock of starlings whose bodies rise and fall in inherited choreography, swarming the sky in a sweeping curtain that for one blistering moment forms the unmistakable shape of a giant bird flapping against the sky. It is why your mouth forms an O that is not a gasp, but rather the beginning of, oh, of course, as in, of course the heart of a blue whale is as large as a house, with chambers tall enough to fit a person standing. Of course a fig becomes possible when a lady wasp lays her egg inside a flower, dies, and decomposes, the fruit, evidence of her transformation. Sometimes the poem is so bright, your silly language will not stick to it. Sometimes the poem is so true that nobody will believe you. I am a bird made of birds. This blue heart, a house you can stand up inside of. I am dying here inside this flower. It is okay. It is what I was put here to do. Take this fruit. It is what I have to offer. It may not be first or ever best, but it is the only way to be sure I lived at all. This is the first bit of good news. Let's dive into faith. Let's see what we got for faith. All right, it looks like we have some from June, but none from July. So June, you mustn't wish for another life. You mustn't want to be somebody else. What you must do is this: rejoice forevermore, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks. I am not all the way capable of so much, but those are the right instructions. That's from Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. Also from Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. The living can't quit living because the world has turned terrible and people they love and need are killed. They can't because they don't. The light that shines into darkness and never goes out calls them on into their bodies and into the world, into whatever the world will require. It calls them into work and pleasure, goodness and beauty, and the company of other loved ones. I loved Hannah Coulter. Loved it. All right, time for another Sarah Kay. All right, let's do this one. This one is called I Am 17 and Everyone. I am 17 and everyone is on the subway, or they were, at least, around 42nd. But the Times Square crowds all shuffled off by 34th, and the rest of the yawning throng by 14th, which is why it takes me a minute to notice him 2 seats away, his entire body turned towards mine, unblinking wolf eyes, making me into wild rabbit. And I am awake, the way a third rail is awake, somewhere beneath my steel live current, thrumming, his nearness thicker than a tongue, and by now the train car is almost empty. At least, I think it is, because I cannot look, because looking would mean lifting my eyes, and I have committed to gargoyle. He doesn't get to know that I am working overtime. He is either going to do something, or he isn't, but I won't give him the satisfaction of the fear that will spill if I shift even an eyelash. So I study the shoes in front of me. I study the litter behind them. I study the metronome of his breath and the lurch of the car, and review every possible hypothetical situation I might be in until he finally rises like a tidal wave, moves past me so slow I age a decade, reaches the platform and turns around to face me. I feel it. I wait for the doors to close before I fold like a polite napkin, glance up to his terrifying, full-toothed grin through the glass. If the doors stutter, there is enough time for him to jump back through, but they don't, and he doesn't. Just keeps his smile bared, stare steady as a pistol, while the train pulls me towards some other future, so I barely even hear her when she asks, "You okay?" Because the shoes belong to a woman, her face clear as a calculator. I got you. She doesn't say, though her eyes are a safety net I did not know had been there this whole time. And I nod my head and deflate. Morning after prom balloon, leaf in a leaf pile, flute solo in a hurricane, and years from now, when a man I wish would text me back won't text me back, and I can't help but speed through every hypothetical situation I might be in, everything he might be feeling or thinking or saying in his not saying, my friends will laugh gently and tell me, it isn't your job, to always decode men's silence. But how else could I have made it here, twirling in this patchwork dress I stitched together of all my narrow escapes? Beauty. Let's see what we got. We've got one from June, none from July for beauty. This is by Kristen Kimball, The Dirty Life. The natural order of things is immutable. Seed, flower, fruit, decline, death, decay, seed. Each stage has its own drama and its own particular beauty. If you can see it, you can accept it. The parts are graceful, and so is the whole. And another Sarah Kay. Let's do Orange by Sarah Kay. The monks who are waiting at my gate at JFK might not be monks, but they are all wearing orange robes, orange sandals. They are rolling orange carry-on bags, and one of them even has an orange neck pillow already on his shoulders in preparation for this flight to Dallas. I know the rules about photographing people you don't know, but forgive me, I snap the shot so I can send it to my mother and make her day. My mother won't say that she gave up photography to raise children, but it is true that she used to be a professional printer with a life of image making and then stopped to fill her arms with babies, and then toddlers, and then children, and then the things teenagers handed her when we refused to be held any longer. You might think that a woman who spent hours inhaling chemicals and grueling over various sinks and under various lights to create a perfectly balanced image would begrudge a technology that imitates it, but you haven't met my mother. This is a woman who loves New York more than she loves any human alive or dead. Every day she walks through the same city as the rest of us. But when I return with a mouth full of complaints about the weather, the subway, the tourists, she remains an endless scroll of wonders of things she insists could only happen in New York. So when my childhood friend James teaches her to use the app we all use, she isn't angry but amazed. This would have taken so much work in the darkroom, she says. Now it's just a button. It's like magic. When James and I were little, his favorite color was orange, and my mother loved this fact. Found it strange and marvelous, this little boy willing to forego fire trucks and Power Rangers, claiming the untouched reject of the crayon box, preferring the traffic cone, the citrus fruit. To practice using the app and get her photography sea legs under her again, she photographs orange objects around the house and on the street. She only has 2 followers, James and me, but every caption is the same, orange for James, and she wanders the city as wide-eyed as always. Stopping strangers with, "Excuse me, I noticed your wonderful orange bag, your hat, your construction vest. That's my nephew's favorite color. May I photograph it?" Never mind that he isn't her nephew. Never mind that it makes him sound 6 and not 30, which he is. This is the way she has always moved through New York, in search of bright morsels she can bring home to share. In Dallas, I wait for my bag at the carousel, and a man in a corduroy jacket approaches, asks me if I am Sarah Kay. When I say yes, he says, "My priests know your poetry and thought that it was you," motions over his shoulder to the men in orange behind him. But when I wave, he says, "I'm sorry. Because of their religious vows, they are not permitted to communicate with someone of your gender, but they asked me to tell you that they wish you continued success." Days later, a new email through my website. "We hope to have not offended you by not meeting in person to appreciate your work, and also pray that your poetry lights up minds, smiles, and souls of all those searching for meaning. That your beauty with words be not just a trained art, but a reflection of who you wish to be." And then an offering of a poem in Sanskrit, which roughly translates, "On bearing fruits trees bend, become humble, with newly gathered water, clouds hang very low. This is the nature of the benevolent." I used to think this was a story about coincidence, or about the invisible thread of poetry that so many people are holding on to, even and especially people who may not have anything else in common. But I think it is actually a story about my mother, how she didn't have to take a photograph for 30 years to make a camera of a daughter, or at least teach her that the way you notice can be a weapon or an act of love, that color blooms through every city, whether you see it or don't, whether you seek it or don't. So why not seek? Why not see? Why not ask yourself, who am I looking for? Nature. Nature is next. We've got one for July, none for June. This is from The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. It was nearly midnight, and the stillness that reigned was rather soothed than interrupted by the gentle dashing of the water of the bay below, and by the hollow murmurs of Vesuvius, which threw up at intervals its sudden flame on the horizon, and then left it to darkness. Let's do Hitting Rocks into Useless Bay. Once in Puerto Rico, I held onto a rock ledge for 45 minutes, refusing to jump into the lagoon below. Friends shouted encouragement and strangers offered kind advice until finally the man I loved crawled up the rock face and stood behind me, coaxing. This is not a metaphor. He said this because he knew that I had already found a way to equate this failure with all other failures, knew that my mind is a tangle of labyrinths with unwarranted symbolism hiding around every stubborn corner. I laughed because it was so accurate, and also because if I died going down, those would be the last words I heard. Instead, I jumped and survived, and that night in bed he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "It was a metaphor. Me. I am the metaphor. I showed up because I believe in you, because I love you, and I knew that you could do it, because I will scale anything when you need me, because you did need me." And he was already asleep before I could answer, leaving me to stalk my own hallways for the meanings of the clutched rock, the shaking legs, the racing heart, the fall, the smack, the coldest shock, and the man who climbed up to tell me to let go. Not even a year later, he has moved into someone else's body, and I am on a beach in Washington. I have come here to hide from my sorrow, to try and write poems that do not lead back to him. Instead, I find myself watching a pack of young men throw rocks into the air before swinging bats of driftwood and smashing them over the water, the thwack and pop and plunk echoing up and down the otherwise empty beach. And yes, the name of this beach is Useless Bay, and yes, the young men are swinging as hard as they can, of course. And yes, it is twilight, and yes, it is twilight. And yes, I am all alone. And I do not want these metaphors. I would give them all back if I could. Even if it meant a rainstorm would forever be just a rainstorm. A ladybug on my arm, simply that. Still, I would trade it for this relentless weight of meaning, this unfair promise of always finding patterns where there need not be any. Let the young men be just young men. Let the young men be just young men, and not my heart forever swinging. Let the water be just water and not the vast loneliness. Let the water be just water and not the vast loneliness. Let the driftwood be driftwood. Let the bay be unnamed. Let the sunset not be my time running out, but only the hour of the day. Only an indication that the bugs will soon be out, that the young men will put on their sweatshirts, that I should be heading home. Love. For love, we have several for June and a handful for July. This is from Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. Love is what carries you, for it is always there, even in the dark, or most in the dark, but shining out at times like gold stitches in a piece of embroidery. Also from Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. Want of imagination makes things unreal enough to be destroyed. By imagination, I mean knowledge and love. I mean compassion. People of power kill children. The old send the young to die because they have no imagination. They have power. Can you have power and imagination at the same time? Can you kill people you don't know and have compassion for them at the same time. From Aftertaste by Daria Lavelle. You bring out the best of everything, the sweet, the sour, the bitter. You're the reason to savor things. You're the first seasoning and the last. You're the sea. You're the stars. Life is built on salt, and I want to build mine with you. Say it again, Maura whispered. I love you like salt. From The Bombshell by Darrow Farr. She loved him and always would. He had both ruined her life and made it extraordinary. From The Bodyguard by Catherine Sinter. I think just because you can't keep something doesn't mean it wasn't worth it. Nothing lasts forever. What matters is what we take with us. From The Bodyguard by Catherine Sinter. You can't make people love you, but you can give the love you long for out to the world. You can be the love you wish you had. That's the way to be okay, because giving love to other people is a way of giving it to yourself. From The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. You are more special than you realize. I don't even know your name, and I would do anything for you. From Evelina by Frances Burney. I revere you. I esteem and admire you above all human beings. You are the friend to whom my soul is attached as to its better half. You are the most amiable, the most perfect of women, and you are dearer to me than language has the power of telling. You are now all my own. How will my soul find room for its happiness? It seems already bursting. From Emma by Jane Austen. If I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it more. And from Queen of Exiles by Vanessa Riley. Yet, I'll always search, hunting for a gaze that lingers. Habit or nightmare or love, I suppose I'm always looking. Our last one. There are so many more I could read, but our last one. Let's end on Cebu. Because their parents were their parents, my mother and her siblings learned to eat rice with chopsticks and the bowl's rim at a close distance to their mouths, which meant that an errant grain would frequently end up on someone's cheek in the midst of shoveling. And it turns out there is a word in Japanese for this single rebel grain, which my mother and her siblings knew because their grandparents were their grandparents, and the word is tsubu, which is one of the only words I know in Japanese, because when I was young and eating rice the way I learned to eat it, because my mother is my mother, she would sometimes giggle, tsubu, and point at my cheek, which is frankly kinder but less funny than what her siblings used to do. Which was not to say anything at all, but rather lift a single grain and silently place it on their own faces in the exact same place where she had missed her own until she looked up and noticed their stifled snickers. So I do not blame my mother for saying she never felt the need to be a mother after being the eldest of those 5, which is what she always says when having children comes up in conversation, which it does a lot these days. And perhaps this is why she is so great at parenting. So many people, myself included, because she has had so much practice. But is not particularly interested in mothering, something entirely different, which I know because I have been bigger than my mother since I was 10, and have not been mothered in the way that I imagine other people sometimes are mothered, with a cooing voice and hair stroking, which my mother would never do because my curls have always baffled her, even when I was a child. Because her hair is pinned straight and down to her butt, unless it is piled on top of her head, which it was for the brain surgery, for which everyone was worried they would shave her entirely, even though she was excited about the possibility of a mohawk, but instead came out with only the back shaved, to make room for the scar, like a giant number 7, which is less than the number of nights I spent at her bedside where she introduced me to every nurse as her daughter Sarah, worrywart, while I called her only homie or pal, as though addressing a friend might keep me from losing a mother. But she was not lost, and very lucky, and now foggy and confined to small phrases, as though sitting inside a robot, though deep down still my mother, whom I feed small spoonfuls of congee rice porridge, which I flavored with furikake that my father brought to the hospital from home because my mother is my mother. And through the Valium haze, she asks me if I remember the story of the monks who only need 3 grains of rice to survive their journey. But I don't, which annoys her, until a few days later she remembers and tells me that the monks only need 3 grains because the first grain is for nourishment and survival, and the second grain is for abundance and gratitude, and the third grain is for sharing, and the fact that she remembers the story is a good sign. But the best sign is the next morning when I come in to find her awake and upright in bed, waving a piece of paper she has written on in pencil that she demanded from the night nurse, so she could tell me that she figured out that a 4th grain of rice is necessary. It's Cebu, which makes me laugh and me cry, which makes her laugh and me cry when she hands me the paper where she has worked it all out, that the Cebu is necessary so we have humor at ourselves, so we know we have no control, but it is okay we know nothing. It is what gives us curiosity and wonder and serendipity, which, because her daughter is her daughter, she makes into a pun, Sarah Dippity, and then adds, not worry wart, trust universe. Other. All right, there is quite a lot for June and July. Here we go. From Hannah Coulter by Wendell-Berry. When you remember the past, you are not remembering it as it was. You are remembering it as it is. It is a vision or a dream, present with you in the present, alive with you, and the only time you are alive. From Hannah Coulter by Wendell-Berry. Living without expectation is hard, but when you can do it, good. Living without hope is harder, and that is bad. You have got to have hope, and you mustn't shirk it. Love, after all, hopeth all things. But maybe you must learn, and it is hard learning, not to hope out loud, especially for other people. You must not let your hope turn into expectation. From Hannah Coulter by Wendell-Berry. I began to trust the world again, not to give me what I wanted, for I saw that it could not be trusted to do that, but to give unforeseen goods and pleasures that I had not thought to want. From Hannah Coulter by Wendell-Berry. Time doesn't stop. Your life doesn't stop and wait until you get ready to start living it. From Hannah Coulter by Wendell-Berry. You think that winter will never end, and then, when you don't expect it, when you have almost forgotten it, warmth comes, and a different light. From The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Every chance you take is a choice to decide who you are. From Rules for Ruin by Mimi Matthews. Knowledge is your greatest weapon, and books are knowledge made manifest. Books enlarged one's mind. They encouraged one to think, to feel, to understand. They could do more than that too when the occasion called for it. In the absence of community, books could be companions. They could be friends. From The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. You don't have to be good or useful for someone to care about you. The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. To the child in each of us, yearning to be special, take my hand, you strange little creature, and together we shall walk beyond the wall. The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Fear not, Bartholomew, every day has its dog. The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. It is easier swearing ourselves to someone else's cause than to sit with who we are without one. The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. It is hard to see who I am when I am lost in what is expected of me. The Dirty Life by Kristen Kimball. A farm is a manipulative creature. There is no such thing as finished. Work comes in a stream and has no end. There are only things that must be done now and things that can be done later. The threat the farm has got on you, the one that keeps you running from can until can't, is this. Do it now, or something living will wilt, or suffer, or die. It's blackmail, really. From The Dirty Life by Kristen Kimball. Cook things. Eat them with other people. If you can tire your own bones while growing the beans, so much the better for you. The Dirty Life by Kristen Kimball. Just a tick past fruiting sits decay. The Dirty Life by Kristen Kimball. Farmers are professional hopers. The Sirens by Amelia Hart. If you create a silence, people want to fill it. The Ladies Rewrite the Rules by Suzanne Allain. For it's an indisputable fact that when a woman no longer seeks acceptance, she suddenly becomes irresistible. The Ladies Rewrite the Rules by Suzanne Allain. We all have our particular burdens to bear, and one person's suffering doesn't negate the suffering of another person. Just because there are many unfortunate and terribly mistreated people in the world does not mean that you are not allowed to mourn the loss of your mother or regret the unhappiness of your first marriage. There is no contest for such things, and really, if there were, who would want to be the winner? We should all be trying to alleviate one another's pain, not denying one another or ourselves the right to feel it. From Evelina by Frances Burney. There is nothing which requires more immediate notice than impertinence, for it ever encroaches where it is tolerated. From Queen of Exiles by Vanessa Riley. We had no shield. I had to become one. From Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. When I am surrounded by books, I feel most at peace. From Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. While to our eyes appear suddenly on the shore, I think I forgot a word. Let's go back and I'll add that word. While to our eyes waves appear suddenly on the shore, their abruptness is an illusion. Waves begin their journey thousands of miles out at sea. They accumulate shape and power from winds and undersea currents for ages. And so when you see the women in Iran screaming for their rights, please remember that the force and fury of our screams have been gathering power for years. From Lion Women of Tehran. That's how losses of rights build. They start small, and then soon the rights are stripped in droves. From Emma by Jane Austen. Without music, life would be blank to me. From The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. You see how people get through their misfortunes if they have a heart to bear up against them and do nothing that can lie on their conscience afterward, and how suddenly one comes to be happy just when one is beginning to think one never is to be happy again. From The Jane Austen Project by A. Flynn. I am not entirely persuaded that selling a book is like selling a pig. From You Are Here by David Nichols. Private, intimate, a book was something she could pull around and over herself like a quilt. From You Are Here by David Nichols. Time is a sensation that alters depending on where you are. From You Are Here by David Nichols. 3 days of walking with strangers. It was the kind of potentially awful experience she needed. You Are Here by David Nichols. You know that thing when you're watching a film that you're not really enjoying and the other person doesn't like it either, but you've paid for the rental, you're halfway through, you sort of want to know what happens, and besides, there's nothing else on. But really, you're just waiting for someone to say, "Can we stop this? I hate it." And neither of us did. Some people sit like that for their whole lives together, waiting for it to pick up, waiting for a good bit. We were lucky in that respect. It could have gone on longer. From Belinda by Mariah Edgeworth. What a treasure to meet with anything, a new heart. All hearts nowadays are secondhand at best. From Queen of Exiles by Vanessa Riley. Yet my sister taught me not to ask for magic you don't understand, or to remove hills when you don't see the next mountains. From The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. Are you to learn, Signor, that you belong to your family, not your family to you? That you are only a guardian of its honor, and not at liberty to dispose of yourself? From The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. Vivaldi listened with submitting patience to his mention of morals and decorum from a person who, with the most perfect self-applause, was violating some of the plainest obligations of humanity and justice. From Evelina by Frances Burney. Whoever she is, I wish... Oh, this is terrible and funny. Whoever she is, I wish she would mind her own affairs. I don't know what the devil a woman lives for after 30. She is only in other folks' way. Also from Evelina by Frances Burney. The young lady reads. And from Evelina by Frances Burney, this is our last one. Oh dear ma'am, you confuse me to the last degree. I dress well? I protest. I don't think I'm even fit to be seen. I'm often shocked to death to think what a figure I go. If your ladyship will believe me, I was full half an hour this morning thinking, what should I put on? Evelina was fun. Evelina was a fun read. And that, my friends, is the good news for June and July. We'll be back in August with just an August good news and no more Sarah Kay. I will see you again soon. And until then, let's go read.